Hey, everybody, welcome back to Comic Quirks with your host, Jimmy. I am here with the person who draws the book I'm named after, Steve Lieber.
Are you seriously named after Jimmy Olsen? Is that a real
My
thing?
real name is Joshua,
Okay.
but for the past 3 years, 2 years, my friends have been calling me Jimmy Olsen because I'm just a diehard Superman fan.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it works out for the better. So you do many books. You were part of the insane Matt Fraction Hawkeye run. You didn't start with David Aja though. You were like in the later part.
Yeah, Matt brought me and my studio mate Jesse Hammond to each do a 10-page story. Shortly after Hurricane Sandy, Matt and Marvel decided they wanted to do a Hurricane Sandy issue of Hawkeye.
Oh wow!
And because they wanted to direct the funds towards relief, they wanted to put together as quickly as possible. So Matt went with people that are in the same town that he is, Portland, Oregon. And we did that issue in like no time. I got the script after Thanksgiving, and it was on the stands by January of the next year. Just
wow,
yeah. And it was just a huge honor to work on it too, because I was already a fan of the book. So it was. I've done plenty of fill-ins where it's a job. I'm hired to give the main creator a spell or something. In this case, I got to read 2 issues ahead of everybody else. Man, I got spoilers. It was great. I got to create a character that then see David draw him later on. It was wonderful.
That's amazing. And now we get to see Hawkeye on the screen coming in, I think next year or the year after. And that must be crazy because we might be able to see some of the stuff you wrote. I mean, you drew.
It's possible. I doubt they're going to do the actual story I drew was Hurricane Sandy hitting New York, and I don't know if they have the budget for a flood, man.
I don't know, man, because Kevin Feige said each series is a 6-hour movie.
Well, they're certainly paying for top talent as far as the actors and stuff. I'll be happy if they can CGI the dog's eye out.
Oh my god! I was talking to my. Okay, I got to tell you, this relates. I was talking to my comic store today when I was there, and the regional manager, Steven, at the comic book shop. That's the name of the store I go to. Mm-hmm. Steven is a diehard Hawkeye fan. He goes, I just want to see pizza. I just want to see Pizza Dog.
Well, I'm following the Instagram of the dog who plays him.
There's an Instagram?
Yeah, the dog. I don't remember. I don't know the actual Instagram name, but if you search on Jolt, Jolt, you'll find that it's the only one that's a golden retriever.
Okay, well, that's going to be right after this.
It's the best thing in my Instagram feed. Oh, look at that! There's a dog. Yeah.
So you have a pretty dark. What's the reputation in the industry for being just the nicest human being to ever walk the earth?
It's greatly appreciated. There's a lot of wonderful people in comics.
Yeah, but you took the time. My comic shop ordered. I don't remember what they ordered from you, but because they ordered something from you, you hand wrote a postcard thanking them personally, and you don't see that very much these days.
I take thanking retailers very, very seriously because that is a hard ass job. That is a really, I mean, I spent 10 minutes going through the previews catalog, and my mind is gone for the day. It's a big, every month there are like 6,000 new line items, and a retailer has to go through every one of those things and say, how many of these do I want? How many of these are people going to want to buy 3 months from now? It's
exactly.
6,000 acts of fortune telling every month, and for someone to take the risk, buy a book that I'm working on without having had a chance to read it, without having seen any reviews or anything, just as an act of faith, I'm grateful for that, and I take it seriously. The least I could do is send them a drawing or something like that. It just means so much to me that someone's willing to take that bit of a risk to help bring my stories to their audience.
Yeah, it's so weird too the way comic shops and ordering are set up, because they pretty much have to go by system based, which is they have a system which is they order X amount of a comic book. I don't know why I'm telling you this. This is for the people who are the viewers, I guess. They order X amount of comic book, and then for Marvel, roughly 50% of people pick up issue 2 who picked up issue 1. And luckily for DC, it's roughly around 30% instead of 50. So it's weird, because then they have to go to then they go, well, it picks up a little more, and it's like they just follow the line throughout each book. It's weird.
It's the numbers I've seen over the years are just wild. I've seen plenty of books where issue 1 to issue 2 is a 50% drop, issue 2 to issue 3 is a 50% drop, and around issue 4 or issue 5 is where it's going to settle. And I don't know how you run a store knowing that just rolling the dice on every one of these things.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I don't even know what to say, because I don't even go to school for this, man. I'm in school for English. That's what I got. So let's get into it. How did you get into art for comic books?
I was obsessive about comics since I was a little kid. I've got the actual first comic book I ever owned, which is a Submariner comic coverless that my dad bought at a garage sale in 1971, 72.
That book could be worth money still.
It has no cover. The most interesting thing about it, looking at it now, at some point when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I went through it with a ballpoint pen, and I re-inked all of the Submariner figures. I just carefully traced every one of them, every single line that Johnny Craig made when he inked them.
Oh man!
Which means that Maurice Everett and Johnny Craig were my first influences as an artist. So yeah, I imprinted on comics immediately, and overall, I wasn't like. It wasn't the happiest childhood for me. There was some fucked up stuff I won't go into, but comics were this thing that rewarded obsessiveness, and I could escape into it. The what was going on outside my room may have been kind of shitty, but when I was in the comic book, I was in a world where things made sense, where interesting things happened. And it was superhero comics. It was Mad Magazine, lots of Peanuts paperbacks. The Sunday
Calvin and Hobbes.
That was before I was a little kid. That started when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in my 50s.
You look good for your 50s. There you go, man.
Yeah, my secret is I don't go outside. But yeah, I just loved comics. And around the time I was 10, 11, 12 years old, I started really researching things. This is before there were trade paperbacks or anything like that. So there were a few books on the history of comics. I was able to get a hold of a couple of them and read those cover to cover, just looking for information. Comic book price guides, when I was able to get my hands on them, always had articles that I would read really obsessively. And then the big thing for me, I still can't believe I did this, was I would go to the library, and you know what microfilms are?
Microfilms?
Yeah. The way libraries used to archive newspapers is they would photograph like an entire year's worth of newspaper and put it on
like a small projector, and you have to look down and
So I would go and get the archives of newspapers from the 30s and 40s and 50s when I had heard that comic strips were a lot better then than they are now. And so I would read like old comic strips a month at a time just on the microfilm, just because it was more comics and it was free and I could get it at the library. And the librarians they were really patient with me, because when you speed through a microfilm machine, it's loud as hell. It's it sounds like a drill going or something. It's just a motor spinning this film really fast to get to the next day's comics page. So I would do that. I would read a day's worth of comics. Read another day's worth of comics. And so I would follow a bunch of old newspaper strips that way. That was a big part of my comics education. And then I got out of it for a while, but then I got way back into it, and decided that maybe this is something I want to do for a living. I had been a business student at Penn State at the time, but I decided no, I really wanted to study comics.
You went to Penn State?
Yeah, briefly. Yeah, a year and a half.
That hurts. That hurts. Who do we hate?
Nittany Lions did nothing for me either. I don't know. No, I enjoyed being there. It was fun living in the dorms and stuff like that. And I was on a full scholarship, and I decided to give up a full scholarship to instead go pay $10,000 a year to study comic books. And you can imagine how happy my dad was about that.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah. So I wound up at the Joe Kubert School studying under.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great education. It was a trade school. It's not like a college,
right?
But we had
and then not only comic book companies go to the Joe Kubert School. I mean, like you have like big Disney companies go there. You have like Pixar go there because they need animators.
Yeah,
everyone goes there.
They had an animation school as well, and I learned a lot. I went in there thinking I knew how to draw, and I came out of there knowing how to draw. And that was a big difference. I'll say what I always say in case folks were thinking about going to art school or listening. It was the right thing for me. It is by no means required to go to art school to do this for a living. I know people who are completely self-taught who could draw circles around me. The way I'm wired, I needed a teacher to be a hard ass and say, no, this is wrong.
Right.
Why it's wrong. And so it was perfect for me.
And I'm the same way. Like I grew up in a military household, and I don't know if you did or not either, but like it helps people telling you are wrong.
One of my teachers at school, everything he knew about teaching, he learned in basic before fighting in World War II.
Oh, great!
Yeah, his entire manner as a teacher came from his drill instructor. It was amazing. Yeah, he would inform us. I don't want you to sign this drawing because this is not artwork you are creating. You are repeating back the information I have given to you in a pictorial fashion. This is not expressive work. You have nothing to express but your own ignorance. And would just heap on the abuse like that. And it was great. We learned so much from the guy.
So how did you meet Matt?
Initially online, goofing around on the internet. Then we met in person at a bunch of conventions, just to say hi.
Did you know how crazy he was before?
Oh yeah, because I'd seen his personality on the internet before I met him in person. So yeah, I knew that this was a mind that can ping pong like crazy. I think we had sort of talked vaguely about working together a couple of times before he suggested me for the Hawkeye story. And then the Jimmy Olsen thing came right out of the blue.
That was what I was leading into with meeting Matt, because I wanted to get into Jimmy Olsen.
I was at a waiting room at the local hospital dealing with some medical stuff in my family, and I got this text saying, "Hey, you want to draw Jimmy Olsen for DC Comics?" Wait, what? I was deeply confused by this. And then he started to tell me what his ideas were for, and they sounded brilliant. And
the book is bonkers, dude. It goes back and forth, and you don't know what to think until the very last issue.
It was a really risky approach he took with the stuff that initially looks like it's an anthology of unconnected Jimmy stories until all of a sudden the pieces start to connect.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where I wish I could experience it as a reader just to see how it all comes together, instead of, I could never know how it reads because I've been behind the scenes making it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to see for myself what it feels like when you start to realize, oh wait, that's that thing from that issue, and that's that thing from that issue.
Yeah, I got to issue 6, and I was like, oh, he's writing this kind of story. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. So I got to wait another 6 months to read it, but cool. It was the book is it was one of those, like, when it came out in Superman Event Leviathan Special.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to think of it. I was like, did he just have intercourse with a gorilla?
Yeah, well, not with a gorilla. No, just with a lady he met in Gorilla City. But the joy for me was the barfing cat scene. I got to that page of the script, and it's like looking around. Am I being pranked? Did I just actually get an entire page that's just a cat projectile vomiting? 7 panels of a barfing cat, really? Whoa! And then I had to sit there and think, okay, what does it look like? Is it going to come out as a dribble? Then I realized, no, it's coming out like Godzilla. And once I knew that, I could see the whole page in my head. I can't wait to draw this. Fortunately, I've got a cat that barfs all the damn time, so I had all the reference for all I had to do just.
You're following around with the Polaroid, like, barf.
I know that 5 minutes after I let him come back inside after he's been out, he's gonna barf up whatever it is he ate off my lawn. So I could just sit there and wait with the camera. Here it comes. Oh yeah, there it is. Look how those eyes are crossing. Wow, yeah.
Oh, it's so funny, man. This is insane, because like everything, like with life now, I think differently, because I go, would that be in a Jimmy Olsen book? Because it's so satire too. It's so funny. And when I got done reading Event Leviathan Special, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna pick this up, but it's Matt Fraction, so I think I will. Mm-hmm. And then I also saw like Lois Lane, and I was like, Greg Rucka, Lois Lane, that could be a good book. And then I was like, okay, I'll pick up both up and just keep the one I like, thinking it was gonna be Greg Rucka. No offense, because Greg Rucka is like a legend. And then I got done reading it, and I was just like, why was Jimmy Olsen just the best book I read in a month?
we got away with a lot of stuff because people have very few expectations for a Jimmy Olsen comic. Also, I think it says a lot about the Superman mythos that you could have both an incredibly serious book like Lois Lane and a lunatic book like Jimmy Olsen, and they're both part of the same world.
Right.
There's a lot of different notes to be played on that keyboard right there.
So with it though, like this book was so weird because it. Have you read Mark Russell's Flintstones?
Oh yeah, I love that. Mark is.
It pisses me off how great it is. It pisses me off because it's like, I love the Flintstones. Why? And then this is like another one of those, just like, why was one of the best books last year Jimmy Olsen? Think back in 20 years when I say this, people are going to be like, are you okay, dude?
People were really surprised when, when I was coming up as a comics fan, that the best comics of the 70s and of the 80s were called Swamp Thing.
Alan Moore.
Yeah, and before that, Bernie Wrightson. A lot of times you could do more interesting things in the neglected corners than you can on the main books, because you could take bigger risks. You can go to stranger places. You can be the storytellers can be more uniquely themselves rather than having to just serve a piece of corporate IP.
That's a good point too, because I never thought that. Because like now I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about like the obscure characters of how great some of those were, like Kevin Smith's Green Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought that would have been like a crazy good book, but he took a risk. He created a villain that was a sound, an embodiment of a sound, like
Mm-hmm.
onomatopoeia, like that's sick. But like it's weird. You could do pretty much anything. It's almost like an independent writer breaking in.
Comics are this weird, fragile medium where every single little bit of it is part of building a world that you could fall into. It's a lot harder to build that world on a big title. If people are reading your one Superman book, they may also be picking up 3 other comics about Superman that are drawn by different people that are changing the voice of that world a little bit. Whereas if you've got this a self-contained walled garden, you can really build. I keep saying it. You can build a unique world.
Mm-hmm.
We got the same thing. Nick Spencer and I on Superior Foes of Spider-Man at Marvel, because on the main Marvel books, that was its own universe, but telling a story about a bunch of villains that nobody cares about. There wasn't much likelihood that they were going to be putting Boomerang in a movie anytime soon.
Right.
So we could make him a completely loathsome character. As Nick said, he deserves to be buried under the jail, and go for laughs that they just would not let you do in a main Spider book. It was hugely freeing. And the other thing that helps, and I apologize to my editors for this, is that we have the advantage of being completely neglected, or sometimes intentionally neglected. But like, I think our editor on that book had 6 or 7 other comics he was editing at the same time. That's 7 books. That's 140 pages passing back and forth across his desk multiple times just in the course of 20 work days in a month. No, that's more than anybody can do. That's more than anybody can actively edit. So all they had to do was make sure that we're not doing too much violence to the Marvel universe in general, and anything else we could just get away with. Now, I know for a fact that there are some things I snuck into the background that my editors did see, that they made a point of not pointing out to anybody higher up or anybody in legal. And so we got away with a lot of jokes that way. And some jokes were made better because that we got edited. I had a baseball pitcher, a splash page. I had a pitcher from the Mets up on the mound.
New York.
And legal came and said that you can't have the Mets logo. We would have to pay the team for the right to put the logo in a comic book. So we changed it to the New York Met. and it's funnier than it would have been if we'd actually just had the logo.
Oh, that's the greatest thing in the world, dude.
Yeah, I wanted to make shirts, man. Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. You also the last part of Jimmy Olsen. You drew Superman.
Mm-hmm.
He had the trunks. Badass. He should always have the trunks. But did you feel like you had like this burden? You're like, I'm drawing Superman, dude. This is the greatest superhero of all time.
I just remember. I just sat down and tried to remember what it felt like reading a Superman comic when I was 10, and tried to put that on the page. Yeah,
that's the best answer I've heard.
Yeah, there's a set of emotions and reactions, and I tried to access that the way like a method actor would think about losing a pet before having to do a crying scene or something. You try to get those feelings right and put that in there.
Man, like that's. I've asked a couple people, like Mark Russell. He did. He had. I had him on, and he did Wonder Twins that had Superman, and I asked him the same question because I truly feel like there's just a burden when you have to take up Superman. I feel like there is always a burden, and I like to see what other people think about it. Yeah. That's like the best one I've heard because Superman is personal to each and every person, but yet similar in every way.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most weirdest characters because he can do that, be the most diverse, yet it's the same. So you putting your own, what you thought as a child to it is like, it's like watching Christopher Reeve. You can't help but smile.
Yeah. And there's a couple of nods to the Christopher Reeve movies in Jimmy as well. We got to put Miss Tessmacher into the story. And one of the side stories that ran in something else, LexCorp has made like a version of the Amazon Echo that's called the Otis. So I drew this little desktop speaker device that looks like Ned Beatty.
Okay, so it's also funny though because like comic book YouTube is a shit show. I'm not gonna lie. Everyone hates everything and everyone dogs on everyone else. There's
a lot more clicks to be gotten from hating something creatively than there is from an appreciation. That's the nature of the beast.
You get credit for this though because like I haven't seen a YouTube video of people hating on Jimmy Olsen. Everyone was like, it's good and funny. I like it.
That's another one of the advantages of doing a book that nobody feels invested in. I don't think there are too many people out there who really feel like they know what Jimmy Olsen done right is. There's lots of people with very strong opinions about what's the right way to do Batman, what's the perfect Superman, what's the right Wonder Woman. Jimmy, he's always been a side character. There's 200 issues of Jimmy Olsen comic, and they're a comedy.
Right. And there were one shots too.
Yeah, 3 stories per issue. Even when Jack Kirby did him, he had him meeting Don Rickles. Who else is snuck in the comic?
Darkseid's first appearance is in Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. So we get a lot of slack for an irreverent approach because people are expecting, if anything, you ask 90% of comics readers out there what they know about Jimmy Olsen. They know cub reporter / photographer for the Daily Planet. They know Don't Call Me Chief. Gee, Mr. Kent.
They do a wristwatch, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not likely to ruin anybody's childhood memories.
Right.
By the way we're doing things.
Probably except for in the chat because he's 85 years old. Not really. We just make fun of him all the time. He's funny. Okay, so let's get to the fix. You wrote I mean, I always say right. You did the art for Nick Spencer's The Fix, and it's weird because like you guys, this came out like what 5 years ago?
Um, I think the first issue came out it was 2016 through 2017, 2018.
Okay, so almost 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So about 4 when it started. Yeah. This is weird though, because the person at my shop was like, "Oh, dude, have you read The Fix?" I was like, "No, what's that?" Because like I'm relatively new to comics. Like this is like my third year of comics, and I read it, and I went in there not knowing what to think. I left with a smile on my face, not knowing what to think.
It was a wild comedy.
Yeah.
It was, Nick and I found working on Superior Foes of Spider-Man that we're really good at doing comedy about horrible people. And Nick has a really unique ability to create an endless variety of garbage human beings. Not only are they all jerks, but they're all jerks in completely unique ways. And we have this strange way of collaborating. His scripts, he would send 2 pages at a time, not in order sometimes. So I never knew how an issue was going to fit together, and I don't think he did either. He would. It was all like improv or something.
So he just came up with like ideas of scenes, and he goes, "That's hilarious. Try this."
Yeah. Sometimes I just get a paragraph describing what happens on a page. Sometimes I'd get 3 pages of dialogue with no visuals or panel breakdowns.
This is the craziest way I've ever heard of
it. It was a deeply weird way of collaborating, but we both we had senses of humors that dovetailed really well, and I was glad to do it. It was when I signed on for Superior Foes of Spider-Man. I don't think either of us knew it was going to be a comedy. It was because Nick works section by section. He would send me a few pages, and I would see it in there. Oh wow, I could really make this. I could make this actually funny, and so I just did it because what the hell, and and then he saw that, and then he would try to top me, and then I would try to top him, and there's just a whole lot of what the improv people call yes and, where just building on each other's.
I did improv and theater, like I did in college too. So
then you know the whole riff.
Yes.
And the Fix was done the same way. He had ideas for scenes that he would throw at me, or sometimes it was he would give me what happens in the scene and then challenge me to find a way to make it funny.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So Maranya in the chat says, Mr. Lieber, what kind of collaboration do you prefer? One where the writer gives you detailed ideas for panel layouts and so on, or where the writer basically says, do what you like, or a combo?
I like them both. If they're going to do really, really detailed stuff like fractions stuff, I would say over 12 issues of Jimmy Olsen, there's almost nothing that I changed. He knew how many panels are on the page, what happens in each panel, which tier of which row on the page that the panels would break down to, and all of it worked like a charm. So if someone wants to delineate things that carefully, I'm fine with it, so long as they're good at it.
Okay.
The only thing that matters to me is what's on the page. How we get there doesn't matter at all.
I mean, this is a collaboration of both writing and visual mediums. So, yeah.
And what the other collaborators do is really important as well. I tend to send my letters, the letters that we work with, my idea of where all the panels, or of where every balloon goes. because especially when you're doing humor stuff, small movements of balloons or where dialogue falls, it's the difference between whether a joke lands or it doesn't. So I really want to work that stuff out carefully.
So what do you do before you just start going at it? Do you like to do sort of little thumbnails and see page layouts and then send them to the artist and be like, "This is what you like"?
I almost never send it to them unless I'm really changing something that they asked for. But yeah, I will. I'll do tiny little pencil thumbnails, and literally no bigger than a box of matches or something. They're completely illegible to anybody else, but I know what I'm looking at. Then I'll block out the page and I'll digitally letter the whole page before I do any penciling at all. Because if there's a lot of dialogue in one panel, if this is the panel and this much of it is dialogue, I know that I've only got this much to draw, so I don't want to I don't want to draw a detailed building back there if I know that it's all going to be covered up with word balloons. I'll try to work out all the rhythmic stuff before I do any kind of real drawing. Other stuff that's more the color artists I work with have all contributed a lot.
Cool.
There's places where jokes wouldn't have worked if the color artist hadn't had their own sense of humor and known how to lay back, how to make something bland rather than too flashy. It's weird. When I did crime comics and heavy serious stuff for years. I did the 2 Whiteout books with Greg Rucka. I did Gotham Central, Road to Perdition. And when it came time to start doing funny stuff, I had to completely change the way I draw. Because the way I drew Whiteout, which is very illustrative and lots of heavy textures and very detailed faces, things like that. If I had drawn Jimmy Olsen that way, not a single joke would have worked. People, it would draw too much attention to the realism in the drawing and not enough to the absurdities of the situation.
So Maranya has another question. How do you feel about working with someone who is dialogue heavy? Is that easier or harder for you when it comes to laying out the panels?
The only thing that makes it hard if there's a lot of dialogue is that there's physically less space to put the drawings in. Heavy dialogue stuff is great for scenes where it's people, where the main content is just people's gestures and how their faces and bodies are moving around when they're talking. If there's a ton of dialogue, but I also have to draw an alien armada coming towards Earth, and 7 panels of it, the scene's going to lose a lot of impact if all the drawings are the size of postage stamps.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the difference between watching a movie in IMAX and watching it on your Apple Watch.
So when I had Phil Hester on, I made fun of Kevin Smith a little bit. I was like, if I was an artist like you, I would hate to work with Kevin because dialogue heavy. And so some artists are good at drawing around it, around the heavy dialogue, and some artists like to maneuver the letters a little more. Like, what do you consider would be like the appropriate way to handle heavy dialogue?
Well, like I said, for every writer I work with, I letter it before I draw it. So right. I'll design a flow of word balloons and then work with the space I have left. And if there's just too much dialogue, if they've just obliterated the page, I can design the page to mitigate that as best I can. And I wouldn't have done it when I was younger, but now that I'm well established in comics, I'm willing to push back sometimes and look at a piece of dialogue that I've gotten and say, okay, I can see what you're going for here, but we could probably get all the impact you're going for with half as many words, and that'll leave me room to draw the scenery that you also asked for. Um, Sometimes it's just I remember on one occasion like that years ago, I just lettered the page and showed them physically. Here's here's a JPEG of how much room there actually is left, and in every one of those cases, it was literal postage stamps. Picture three three letter stamps next to each other. That was supposed to be a I think it was like 20 soldiers coming over a hill. It's just gonna look like ASCII art or something.
So now here's the question that I have because I'm a little confused by it and I don't really know what it is. You have a background artist,
Mhm.
and do you mind telling me what that is and why?
Time. I'll answer why first, because typically with comics, you've got a month to draw 22 pages. Every one of those pages is 5, 6, 7 illustrations sometimes, and it's just physically an insane amount of work to do. Working with a background artist, I can plan out the illustration and say, okay, this is the Batmobile coming through Gotham City. I'll take care of the Batmobile. It's here, but I need some spooky looking buildings back here, back here, back here. And I'll say light it so that the light's coming at street level, but the parts up top are dark.
You basically do a script for the background artist too.
Yeah. I'll plan out a picture and have him work out all the details of perspective. How does one part of a window set into the casement and things like that. There's a million things that are. Oh, I shouldn't say the grunt work because there's a lot of creative work there. And the background artist I've worked with, Tom Rogers, is a fantastic cartoonist in his own right. There's places where he did wonderful stuff and really surprised me. I planned out a picture where I figured it was just the Bat Cave, so it would be stalactites and stalagmites and maybe one computer. And when I got back from him, had the Robin tube and the Joker card and the dinosaur and all this cool stuff. I said, "Oh, this is great! Holy cow!" And with just about any artist who works with background artists, and lots of folks do, you don't have, you couldn't have the job if you didn't know how to do it yourself.
Right.
But there's only with with only eight work hours in a day, we can by bringing somebody in to help, I can produce a much richer comic.
I don't know who did the background splash page for Jimmy Olsen issue. I think it was issue 1, the ending where he's in Gotham.
Tom knocked himself out on that.
Funny.
I was thrilled, and he so good.
Yeah, it was just like, why can't I get that in Batman?
I mean, there's plenty of artists who will draw the hell out of Gotham. I was like thinking of
but it was that particular style that was just it worked so perfectly together that I was like, I want that in Batman, and I want you on Superman. Like, this is working out.
When I did a run on Detective Comics back around 2001, I kept waiting for a chance to really open up and do some big Gotham City stuff, but I just never got those kind of scenes. I had a lot of pages where it was just Bruce Wayne in prison. So I got to do cool stuff with prison bars casting shadows of people, but I didn't get to draw that Gotham architecture the way I wanted.
All right, I got 2 questions left before we wrap up.
Sure.
One is, Mr. Lieber, do you prefer work in traditional or digital art method-wise? Which method do you prefer and use, and why?
I do. Most of my process is digital. There is an analog pass at the end because I like the way a brush can drag over paper and give certain marks.
Mm-hmm.
But despite having done this professionally for almost 30 years, I still draw a lot. I still do a lot of correcting when I draw. And digital is just so nice for being able to fix mistakes. I've got that face perfect, but it's a little bit too big for the rest of the body. Oh, no problem. If I did that on paper, too bad. Doing it digitally, grab the face, shrink it down 10%. Now it's perfect. Or being able to check things. There's a trick that a lot of artists use, where they'll flip a drawing and look at it up towards a light so they can spot their mistakes. And digitally, it's a click of a button, and you could flip the drawing and suddenly see everything you've done wrong.
Oh, wow.
So I would say that, well, I still viscerally love the process of dragging a brush or a pen over paper, but the digital component of work just makes me able to work better. You get better comics out of me because of the digital toolbox.
So I guess there's one other besides this one. What's next, and are you going to do something else at DC with Matt?
We've talked about it. We've banged ideas around before, but Matt's booked up until the spring, so we wouldn't be starting anything until then at the earliest. I'm currently working on an 8-page Superman story that's going to be in the Superman Red and Blue anthology. A not funny Superman story, so it's just a very.
Might I ask who's the writer?
Brandon Easton is a new writer coming out of, I believe, DC Animation. He's written some film stuff, and it's strong and heartfelt, and I'm really looking forward to doing it. I've just started thumbnailing it this week.
That's awesome! I can't wait.
And I'm really excited. I'm not sure if I'm going to be coloring it myself or not. It's part of the Red and Blue book, so it's going to be black line art with Superman red and Superman blue, and those will be the only colors. Yeah, I'm eager to see what we can come up with and what the effect's going to be.
All right. So I have to boost my ego a little bit with this comment. Mr. Lieber, now that you've been interviewed by the Jimmy Quirks, do you feel as though you've truly made it in the industry?
I think that every cartoonist going back to Will Eisner, Jack Kirby knew that Jimmy Quirks was the breaking point. Is when you knew whether you had a future or not.
I mean, I knew that. I don't know if anyone else knew that, so I'm happy the whole industry knew that. Let's keep it going. So, Steve Lieber, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it. Everyone, this is my last interview until the 2nd because Christmas is coming and New Year's. I wanted to wait. The 2nd, I'll be interviewing Joe Corallo. And the 3rd, John Suttress, word balloon himself.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He's interviewed a lot of guys.
Well, like he was one of the first pop culture podcasts for comic books and conversations with the creators. I was like, I need this guy to come on and just talk about it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So like, subscribe. If you don't, I don't care. I do this for me because I want to learn. This is so much fun.
I'll do the thing where I hold up my book. There you go. Bam.
Boom, there you go, man. Read the book. Jimmy Olsen is so much fun. If you don't read it for the book alone, read it for Jimmy Me.
There you have it, folks.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Pleasure.